Is it true that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed for same gender loving relationships? No, it's not true. It's nowhere in the Bible. Then how did that unscriptural, unbiblical teaching slip into church? How did it happen? How did it happen? And who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? Now, clearly, we know it wasn't God. Well, then who did it? Did Sodom and Gomorrah actually exist? All of that is coming up on this episode of The Real God is Not in the Bible. The Bible's not about God. The Bible's not from God. The Bible's not inspired by God. The Bible is a collection of incredibly human writings. A collection. And I love that collection. I am never here to bash anybody's Bible loving, Bible thumping beliefs. And I am never here to bash anyone's religion. I'm here to share my findings, to inspire to freedom, to free our minds of the yoke of religion, to free humanity from the warmongering of religions, to free all of us into a higher octave of true unconditional love for all, compassion, and humanity ascending into our God self. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. If you're brand new here, welcome. We have so many brand new people here on the channel, and I'm so thrilled. I am so thrilled. I absolutely love you. I absolutely love you for being here, for listening to this witch. Yes, I am a practicing Christian witch. How you loving? Oh my goodness. No, that is not Tarika. Oh my goodness. I heard about the baby who might be bigger and bigger and bigger now. Hi. I miss you. Love you, love you, love you. Family, I've got to tell you something. So if you're brand new here, I am Reverend Valerie Love. I am an author of 26 books on practical spirituality, Christian Witchcraft Starter Kit, Witchcraft, the Occult, and Metaphysics. You can pick them up at valerielove.com/books. Oh my goodness, you enjoy this series? Thank you so much, Fred. I am so glad. I am loving this. And when I'm no longer loving it, I'll no longer do it. Right? I am loving this. I am loving this. I am loving this. I have discovered more things about the Bible that I never knew in this past year that have been astonishing. Astonishing. How did I have this book all these years and not realize what was in the book? Even though I was reading it, I was reading it with a Christian overlay. I was reading it with the church filters. I was reading it overlay. Let's begin. Ooh, we have a lot to cover tonight, family. We have a lot to cover tonight, and I guarantee you, you are going to love it. So, absolutely smash up the likes. Smash up the likes and subscribe. How come a bunch of y'all are watching me and you don't subscribe? The analytics in my YouTube studio tell me a bunch of y'all are watching me and not subscribing. What's up with that? It's a tap of a little button. Come on, just do it now. Just tap the button. That's it. Cost you nothing. Means a lot on this end. Cost you nothing. What's up with that? Don't just be running around getting the goods and don't contribute to the party. Thank you so much. I love it all. So smash up the likes and remember to share, comment. This is a global discussion, conversation that we're having. And why are we having this conversation about the Anunnaki, ancient mysteries, occult secrets, Christian witchcraft, the Bible, the occult secrets of the Bible? Why are we having these conversations? We're having these conversations so that we reveal humanity's true origins and our divine nature that has been hidden from us for thousands of years. Like, why were we not told the truth, though there are people on this planet who do know more than they're letting on, yet have concocted a story that they fed to the masses in church, in schools, in politics, and so on. And to provide conclusive evidence that the Bible is not from God, it's not written by God, it's not about God, it's not from God, it's not inspired by God, it's not a holy book, it's not a sacred book, it's a collection of literature. It's very human, it's very amazing, it's very beautiful. It conveys to us the secrets that I found out about the Anunnaki came from the Bible. So I am so thankful for the Bible, for the literature that it is, for the life-changing literature that it is. It is nothing more than a collection of literature, human stories, stories of gods and you know what people call gods and goddesses, and really entities or beings unlike ourselves, and to free us from the belief that you have to believe in the Bible, you have to live by the Bible. We're not doing that anymore. We are in the 21st century. AI is here. We are moving into a new world. We are moving into a world of ascension where we all know and understand our true divine nature. We're no longer at war with each other. We understand oneness. We understand oneness. That's where we are. All right. I have to tell you some amazing news. YouTube went ahead on the Valerie Love YouTube channel. This is live streaming to the Valerie Love YouTube channel, to the Christian Witches YouTube channel, to the Christian Witches Facebook page. Yay! Hi, a global community. Welcome. YouTube on the Valerie Love YouTube channel made this playlist into a podcast. Ah! And thus far, this podcast has had over almost 250,000 views, 228,000 and counting views. I am so thankful for you. And one other thing, hold on, let me get this other picture too, because I've got to just thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for this amazingness. There's another picture in here that's not showing. Not sure why it's not showing in this moment. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Hello, hello, hello. I need you to show. You're acting like you don't want to show. So we're going to do this. Hold on. Hello. Hello. Hold on. It is actually a screenshot that I took. Oh, you can see it here. I don't know why it's not showing up in there, but you can see it here, that I have the top 5 most loved videos, and I'll show them to you. Let me show you the top 5. I don't know why this thing is not wanting to show right now. That's really weird. Yet it shows right here. You know what? Let me show it to you. Let me see if I still have it on my desktop. I may still have it on my desktop. Let's see if I still do. I do. Here it is. So here are the top 5 from this podcast, from this series. Enoch, Elijah, and Ezekiel, still holding at number 1. Adam and Eve were not created by God. El Elyon is not God. Yahweh is not God. None of those Elohim is God. Sodom and Gomorrah were not destroyed by God. Those are the top 5 as we have it right now on the podcast. So thank you, thank you, thank you for making this podcast so supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Let's get into it. The Anunnaki, who destroyed at Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, because we already had a discussion before in the podcast about Sodom and Gomorrah, we are now going to go into what we discussed before. I'm giving you more. So let me tell you what we already discussed in that other episode. I'm going to show you where you can find that other episode. And then I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about in this episode, because we're not rehashing. So in our last discussion, we examined evidence for a great destructive event that befell an ancient city that is now known as Tal el Hammam, which some believe is the site of Sodom and Gomorrah, right there by the Dead Sea. A snippet of the family tree of the Star People. The Star People, I showed you their family tree in that episode. And ancient feuds of the star travelers that led to the cataclysmic event. So, all of that I discussed in episode 6. God did not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And what I did was I linked episode 6 on both the Valerie Love YouTube channel and the Christian Witches YouTube channel. I linked it below so that you can look at it and you can see that's the Sodom and Gomorrah, pardon me, part 1. Now we're talking about Sodom and Gomorrah part 2. So this is what we're going to talk about in this discussion. In this discussion, we're going to tell you some little known secrets of the Bible's version of the events and the specific Anunnaki involved, adding to the former discussion. So we want to build on episode 6. Episode 6 was very popular. We want to build on episode 6. We're also going to address why these cities were destroyed. It's not what we were told. It wasn't for homosexuality. It wasn't for same-sex, same gender loving relationships. It wasn't for that. And I'm going to tell you where that lie originated and how it kept gaining like a snowball down a mountain, and it just kept gaining steam, and though it's completely not true. So you're going to watch the prior episode, and I want you to also watch this particular TikTok. So I'm going to take you over to the Christian Witches TikTok. No, I don't want you to leave YouTube because you know how much I love YouTube. Absolutely in love with YouTube. Yet this will also help you if you want to find more. This is the Christian Witches TikTok. And when you go to the Christian Witches TikTok, I want you to go to this one right here that says, God didn't destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. People love that particular one. They love it. They love it. So I linked that also in the description below. And while you're there, absolutely connect with us on TikTok. Absolutely follow on TikTok. Okay. So there you have what we talked about before, what we're going to talk about now, and how you can access what we talked about before. Let's proceed. Now, church lied. We already know that they lied about many things. They lied about many things. So this probably shouldn't be a surprise that they lied about this too. Let me come off screen share. Let me come on screen share and ask the love tubers. Love tubers, what were you told? Let me stop screen sharing for a second. What were you told about the reason that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed? Were you told that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because same gender loving relationships? Just say yes if that's what you were told. Is that what you were told? Just say yes in the chat. And if you're watching on a replay, just let me know in the comments. What were you told? What is your understanding of it? What were we told? Because I want to know, was everyone told the same thing I was told? This is what I was told in church after church after church. When I left Jehovah's Witnesses, I was kind of in my spiritual development and I was exploring different things. I was reading books about Buddhism, reading books about Hinduism. I was reading books about all kinds of things, Wicca and so forth. It was like my soul woke up and I was devouring things. Homosexuality, that's exactly right. Brenda said yes. Okay, I see. Y'all got the same information I did. Yes, you got the same information too. Samri Bliss, I love that. You got the same information. Fred, you got the same information. That's the information they gave us, and they lied. They flat out lied. And guess what? It's nowhere in the Bible. Didn't they tell us that that was scriptural, it's biblical, and that it came from the Bible? It's nowhere in the Bible. And guess what? The Bible does give you the real reason why Sodom and Gomorrah met with a destruction. Isn't that evil? That's so evil, Fred, right? Like, why do they have to make up things to tell us? We would have thought one way or the other they were destroyed because they were wicked. Okay, they were destroyed because they were wicked. Why do the preachers love to get up on Sunday morning like the homosexuality in Sodom and Gomorrah? And the congregation goes, yeah, preach, Pastor, preach. Why? Why? Church has pet peeves. They had favorite people that they love to hate. They love to hate gay people and they love to hate witches. That not nothing but witches and the demonic spirit of Satan, the devil. And they love to hate certain people. It's just pretty yucky. And so, yeah, their religion is about love. Their religion is supposed to be a religion of love. So how about we put the love back in what Jesus said? How about we put the love back in? Wait a minute. Let's put some love in it. What is going on here? Come on, baby. All right, let's continue because we want to know, how did this nasty lie start? Oh, and Jezebel. Unique Organics Hair Care. How could I forget about the Jezebel spirit? A woman who is a powerful woman, basically. That Jezebel. Them church people. Very interesting. They're very interesting. All right. But hey, baby, I'm not here to knock nobody's thing and what they do. If it makes you happy, baby, do it. It just didn't make me happy. Did not make me happy. Quite the contrary. All right. They lied because here's what the Bible says. If you look at all the scriptures that talk about Sodom and Gomorrah, here is what it says. Genesis 18:20-21. The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grievous. That doesn't say anything about any specific sin. Genesis 19:4-11. Men of Sodom demand to know Lot's angelic guests. So supposedly people interpret that as bring the men out so we can and get with them. But that's not homosexuality. That's considered violence, abuse of strangers, and a violation of hospitality, which is a big no-no in the ancient world. Nothing, it says nothing about that in the Bible. Genesis 19, the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire and overthrew these cities. No cause given. Ezekiel 16, this was the sin of your sister Sodom, arrogance, overfed, unconcerned, did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things. Still no mention of anything about same gender loving relationships. Still no mention of that. It says other things. They're talking about pride, they're talking about greed, they're talking about injustice, neglecting the poor. Okay. Jeremiah 23, among the prophets of Jerusalem, I have seen something horrible. They commit adultery and live a lie. They are like Sodom to me. So adulteries and lies and corruption. What else is new? That's run of the mill parlor trick sins. These are run of the mill sins. Adultery, lies, and corruption. You find those in every church. I said it. I said what I said. Isaiah 1 calls Israel's leaders rulers of Sodom and people of Gomorrah, criticizing empty sacrifices without justice. So that's hypocrisy, that's injustice. That's once again ignoring the oppressed, ignoring the hungry. Doesn't say anything, nothing. We're looking for it. I don't see it. Jude 1:7. Sodom and Gomorrah gave themselves up to sexual immorality and went after strange flesh. Strange flesh. We don't know what that means. Does that mean, quote unquote, because these what has been translated angels, they were not angels because there are no angels in the Bible? Watch that episode. There are no angels in the Bible. And you certainly couldn't have sex with an angel. Now, I didn't say that there were no angels. I said there are no angels in the Bible. There's many, this whole universe is happening with many beings, all different kinds of conscious beings in this entire universe. So I would never take it upon myself to say there's no such thing as angels. No way. That's not what I'm saying. I said there's no angels in the Bible. There's Malachim, there's Ishim, there's Elohim. Malachim, simply a messenger, an emissary, which was translated into angelos in the Greek, and that was translated into English as angel. That's not an angel, that's a messenger. It's an emissary, someone who came to give a message from someone who sent them. Jude, okay, let's get to 2 Peter. Sodom condemned for lawless deeds, while Lot was just distressed by their filthy conduct. Okay, lawlessness, filthy conduct. I still don't see what they have preached to us in church. Where did it come from? So I had to go down the rabbit hole to find out, well, why was these cities supposedly destroyed in the first place? I'm going to tell you, why they were destroyed. They were destroyed because of a political, military conflagration between the Anunnaki. The Bible in Genesis chapter 14, which is before Genesis 18 and Genesis 19 talks about how they came together and they were destroyed, the kings, how they were destroyed, and how these three quote unquote men, the Bible says men, came to Abraham. Now, this is what the Bible is saying. There's no such person as Abraham. Most Bible scholars agree Abraham never existed. He's a figment of the imagination. He's a composite character. He is I don't want to say a composite character. He is a contrived character. He was made up. He was made up for theological reasons. See, Genesis in the Hebrew Bible is building a case. It's a theological case. It's not a historical case. And because they weaved in stories, they took the stories of the day that they were exposed to that were super popular. We don't know these stories because we weren't living 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. Yet, if you were living 3, 4,000 years ago, you would have known all these stories too, like the back of your hand, like people know Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Greek mythology. We know those stories. Humanity has always had stories. We thrive on mythology. That's how we pass encoded messages to each other through story format. It's our favorite way of passing on truth to each other is in stories. So this whole story realm, let me come off screen share for a minute. These stories were in the zeitgeist. They knew about Sargon of Akkad. They knew about famous pharaohs. They knew about Erra in the Erra epic. They knew about these legendary warriors and gods, which were the Anunnaki gods or the Anunnaki gods. They knew these stories. We don't know the stories because we weren't living back then. But do you understand that the Bible takes some of those stories from way back when and reimagines the stories to fit a particular methodology? Because once again, it's a theological work trying to tell you what to believe and what to think about God and the nature of the universe. It's making a case. The Hebrew Bible is making a case. But the beauty of the Hebrew Bible is it was using stories that were in the zeitgeist at the time to formulate its own stories, which means if you read it carefully enough, you will find the residue of those very ancient stories. You'll find the Epic of Gilgamesh in the Bible. You'll find Ziat-Sudra in the Bible. He's just named Noah. In another story, he's named Utnapishtim, the one who survived the flood by building a boat. You will find the Tower of Babel and the Tower of Babel legendary stories of them building this great tower. All of those stories existed before the Bible was ever thought of, before the first scribe ever picked up a feather from a bird and dipped it into some ink or whatever they were doing to write on a papyrus. Before that ever happened, before even one person picked up anything to write about a Bible, all those stories were already circulating in the zeitgeist of them. I'm not talking about the whole zeitgeist of humanity, because Africa had their own stories. I'm talking, and China wasn't called China back then, right? It wasn't called Africa back then either, right? All these different regions have their different stories, yet the stories do converge. So when we talk about Mesopotamia, between the land between the two rivers, right? Mesopotamia literally means between the two rivers. The Tigris on one side, the Euphrates on the other side. These people lived in there. This is Mesopotamia. These are the people we're talking about. In Mesopotamia, they had their heroes just like we have our heroes now. If someone asked you about LeBron James, you would know. If someone asked you about Serena Williams, you would know. If someone asked you about Taylor Swift, if someone asked you about Beyonce, if someone asked you about Stephen King, if somebody asked you about J.K. Rowling, we know these people. Now, 500 years from now, they might not know these people, or 1,000 years from now, they might not know these people, but they'll pick up some Harry Potter books and they'll say, oh, wow, these people were reading something called Harry Potter, right? Which is amazing. So I love the Bible because it preserved for us the stories that we were never privy to. We were not privy to these stories. We didn't know about Sargon of Akkad. We know Moses, and Moses is based on Sargon of Akkad. So that's what made me go and look up Sargon of Akkad and find out that this baby was floated in a basket among the reeds on the river. Oh my goodness. What? They made Moses up? Yes. Now I've got to tell you another thing. When I used to hear people talk about these kinds of things, it used to grate on me. Like I would be like, before my mind was at a place where I could be with the truth, even though it upset my sensibilities and it caused cognitive dissonance. Some people are still at the cognitive dissonance level, like a flood of information comes into their consciousness and it hits their consciousness, and you see them in the comments. All I know is read my TikTok comments and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's only Jesus. Okay, beloved. Whatever you say, it's only Jesus. Jesus is Dionysus reborn. So what are we talking about here? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. Or they just post random scriptures. I think they stopped doing that on YouTube because they see it's a moot point. We're talking about the Bible, so why are you posting random scriptures? That's because this information is difficult to digest. Abraham never existed. Moses never existed. There was no Exodus. There was no millions of people walking through the desert for 40 years. It never happened. No 10 words. I'm going to do the 10 commandments too. I'm going to do an episode on the 10 commandments and what they really are. There was no 10 commandments. There was no God standing up there with his finger, Charlton Heston, writing on some no, it never happened. And I know that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. People are cracking up. Oh my goodness. I know that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. So I have compassion and I have empathy because I used to be there. Yet we cannot allow our sentiments and our feelings get in the way of truth. Because you know what they say about truth? The truth sets you free, but first it pisses you off. Let's get to the bottom of this lie and who really did it. Let's continue. So I just had to come on screen share to say that because it's not easy. And so for all of you who are here, I freaking love you. I freaking love you for just being willing to take yourself on and your own consciousness and free your consciousness to come to a greater understanding, awareness of the truth and self-gnosis. Okay, Genesis 14 tells us what was really going on. Why was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed? Because Genesis 14 says that there was a political alliance and the cities did not stick with the political alliance like they said, and therefore a war broke out. Now that sounds more like it. The kings of Sodom and Gomorrah had been vassals under Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, for 12 years. This is what the Bible says. In the 13th year, they rebelled and broke the alliance. The kings of Sodom and Gomorrah. In response, Chedorlaomer and allied Mesopotamian kings swept in, defeating them and carrying off spoils, including Lot. Abraham goes in to rescue Lot and defeats the kings. Now, none of this is historical. Why? Because nowhere outside of the Bible can they find any of these kings. They're not in any inscriptions anywhere. They're not in any records anywhere in Mesopotamia. These kings, these names are made up. Some of them don't even fit. The names don't fit the time frame that they're in. They're anachronistic. So We know that this is not historical, yet the Bible is giving us hints. This is why we must be occultists. Occult means hidden, it means you have to dig beneath the surface, it means you've got to dig for gold. Sodom and Gomorrah, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, according to the Bible, were already embroiled in a rebellion and a political alliance before the destruction in Genesis 19. And some scholars say that that probably really was what happened, that there was some kind of political conflagration in the region. Now, very interesting that none of this has anything to do with sex, same-sex loving relationships. We still are lost on that. So how did that unbiblical lie become so widespread? Now, before I tell you that, make sure to pick up the books. Make sure to pick up the books. I'm the author of How to Be a Christian Witch. Pick that up. I'm also the author of Spell Crafting for the Christian Witch. Pick that up. And I'm also the author of these books that will absolutely help you in your spiritual path and becoming powerful. Coming into witchcraft and magic and the occult sciences is nothing more than coming into all your true powers. We don't need any more angry gods, so that's why I'm writing The Real God Is Not in the Bible. And all of our channel members have the ebook version of it. The paperback and hardcover are coming out on Kickstarter very soon. Please leave a review. Leave a review. Leave a review. I also want to let you know that we are going to Bali and Egypt for our retreats. We do retreats all over the world. Bali, Peru, Mexico, Greece, Italy, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. We go all over the world. Egypt. So this will be the third sojourn to Egypt for myself. And for a very short time, I'm going to drop the link in the chat, and then we're going to get right back to our conversation. We've got a little sponsor moment here. I am going to give you the link because right now we have a special, limited time only special, that you can come to the Bali retreat absolutely free. Absolutely free. You can qualify to win the Bali retreat. And we also, the instructions are right here on that page. So if you want to go to Bali with us, and also pictures of us at one of our Bali retreats, absolutely amazing. We also go, of course, take you to Turta Impul temple to cleanse your energy. And oh my God, that temple, people come from all around the world to go. And here's us getting on the hot air balloon over Luxor in Egypt. You've got to come with us to Egypt and romp through all of these temples and all of it. You have the opportunity to win a trip to Egypt, also completely free. So go check that out. Now let's continue. Here is how the lie of Sodom and homosexuality as the reason for the downfall and not a political alliance that was broken and a military operation. That's what it really was. And I'm going to show you the Anunnaki who were involved. It was actually a political military alliance that was broken, and there was a rebellion. Two vassal states, Sodom and Gomorrah, according to the Bible. So the Bible is giving us the Bible said nothing about homosexuality at all. The Bible is helping us understand what was really going on, because before it got to anything about the destruction, it set the context, and the context is right there in Genesis 14, which I just showed you. That in Genesis 14, let's go back and look at it. It says that there was a political military context. It was an alliance of kings, and some of the kings broke out of the alliance. That's what it says. And the king of Elam didn't like that. They rebelled and broke the alliance, and he came storming. Now, that's what the Bible says. But now the Bible has given us hints. It didn't happen exactly like that. Yet I'm going to show you more of the story so we understand what did happen. But now let's get to the bottom of this lie. Church lied. If you are in a church and they're still preaching Sodom and Gomorrah and homosexuality, you need to stand up in church in the middle of Sunday and say, "Excuse me, Pastor, you need to watch Reverend Valerie Love on YouTube." It's to know, where did it come from? Let's look at where it came from, because like all lies, they have a genesis, like a kernel. And then my mama used to tell us, if you have to tell one lie, you have to tell another one. And then you have to tell another one. You see, it grew in the telling. Where was the genesis of this lie? In the 5th to 6th centuries BCE, when Genesis was being composed, that is when Sodom and Gomorrah are still just violent, inhospitable, all the things we were just reading. They don't take care of the poor, they're just bad people. Nothing about anything else. 2nd century BCE, in the book of Jubilees, the Sodomites are condemned for impurity, but not homosexuality. So we've got 5th to 6th centuries BCE, 600 years before Jesus. They still are thinking Sodom and Gomorrah. If you had told a person that lived in 500 BCE that Sodom and Gomorrah was killed for adultery, was destroyed for homosexuality, they would look at you like you had two heads. Like, what are you talking about? The lie didn't exist yet. Where did it start? Here's where it started. It started with Philo of Alexandria. Philo, who is writing in the 1st century CE, links Sodom to unnatural lusts in Greco-Roman terms. So in the Greco-Roman world, people were being, I don't know why, when some of these Roman people were like some of the most, loose people sexually, and free people sexually. They would do anything and everything. So I don't know why they were persnickety about gay people. I don't understand that part. But anyway, Philo of Alexandria lived from 20 BCE to 50 CE. He's a Hellenistic Jewish philosopher. And he's somewhat considered one of the church fathers, or one of the early writers on Christianity. He is the first one to explicitly equate Sodom with same-sex relationships. His interpretation still plays a huge role today. I'll show you one of his quotes, because his quotes are kind of scary. And I kind of think you can read it. You can read it for yourself. I pulled it up and I'm going to drop it in the chat for you. These are the works of Philo. If you want to just read what Philo is saying, he is saying some really strange things. He says some stuff like, on virtues, any man that mounts another man is despicable, blah, 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 blah. I thought, oh, you sound like a homophobic person who is really gay, but really mad at other people who are okay with being gay. That's what, I don't know, that's what it sounded like to me. You read Philo and you tell me. If you've already read Philo, you let me know. But that's what Philo sounded like to me. But I pulled up Philo, so you can read Philo, the works of Philo. You can read it right here online, free. And he is a contemporary of Josephus. And you can just read his writings right here. You can read the whole thing. You can read all of it. And he sounded like, when I was reading some of these quotes, where he decided that he was going to reinterpret the Sodom and Gomorrah story as a homosexuality story. He sounded like a person that was full of lust himself. Because, some of these church fathers that were talking so much about lust, and, some of them were locked away and they were in these different monasteries and things. And some of them were, well, he wouldn't have been in a monastery because he was Jewish, and they've sworn off having sex and things like this. And they're just super horny, and they're repressed. So because they're repressed, they're calling on these things evil. They're calling sex evil. They're calling anything people want to do with regard to sex. It's just evil. So you're getting some of this very prudishness working into Christianity, and it wasn't there before. It wasn't there before. Okay, then it grows in the New Testament. Jude and Second Peter, they only speak of sexual immorality and strange flesh. But now, if you go to the fourth century, Origen and Augustine also interpret the story as condemnation of homosexuality, following Philo's lead. They continue talking about it being, and Augustine, he was a pretty, he was a pretty extreme person when it came to church doctrine. Extreme. So then you keep going, you keep going. The medieval period, now they're starting to teach that sodomy is homosexuality. Medieval, somewhere around 1300, 1400, 1500s CE. Now sodomy is homosexuality. Modern scholarship, they re-examined the text and they saw that the texts talk about violence, injustice, and his inhospitability, not homosexuality. But your church is still thumping the Bible. The Bible says. Doesn't say that. Doesn't say that. Doesn't say that. Okay? So that's how the story started to morph and grow. That this is about homosexuality. And now, if you ask, we're going to come on screen share for a moment. If you ask the average everyday churchgoer, what would they say about Sodom and Gomorrah? Homosexuals. Because a lot of people are homophobic, and a lot of people are sexually repressed. And why are they sexually repressed and why are they homophobic? Is because they have been taught that there is something wrong with sex. They have been taught that sex is bad, sex is evil. And so they have taught you in church to repress your true sexual feelings, your true sexual orientation, not to explore. If more people explored, if more people were not repressed, we would not have the Catholic churches and all of their violations against children. We wouldn't have that. And why did the church tell priests that they could no longer get married? Does everybody know priests used to be getting married? Priests used to be married. It was no problem for a priest to be married. Does anyone know why the Catholic Church decided, oh no, priests can't get married anymore? Because a priest would get married, he lived in a parish, he owned the land, and when he had children, the land would go to the children, not to the church. And the church said, oh no, we can't have that. We need to keep all the land. Do you know how much land the Roman Catholic Church owns around the world? Do you know that the archdiocese, when you go to New Orleans, the archdiocese, the Catholic archdiocese owns almost all those cemeteries, including the cemetery with the voodoo queen herself, Marie Laveau. The Catholics own all that. Is that wild? The Catholics didn't want the land to go, so they told the priest, you can't get married. Yeah, and they told the priest, you have to be celibate. You can't have any children. So what did they create? They created extreme sexual repression among men. How you gonna have men and they don't have sex? That's unheard of. Men that are not having sex. Like I could see a bunch of nuns in a monastery and maybe, some of them are boinking each other every so often, but I could see after a while, maybe women. You're going to tell the men not to have sex, you are definitely going to have a problem. You're definitely going to have a problem. And because the men could not have sex, we had aberrations that occurred because you're always going to have an aberration. You're always going to have an aberration if you have a repression. If you're trying to repress, It's always going to come out somehow. That energy is going to be expressed. And sexual energy is for expression. Sexual energy is for the natural enjoyment of humans. Sexual energy is a powerful, powerful energy, like fire, like magic, like microwaves. It is a powerful energy like all the other powerful energies that we have. And so we can understand if you're young and your parents tell you, no, we're not going to talk about that. They're going to wait until you get to an appropriate age where you can consciously handle it, you can emotionally handle it. And it's just the same with fire, that your parents didn't let you play with matches when you were 3. They didn't let you put a fork in an electric socket when you were a toddler. That would be horrible. And if you're 20 and you still don't know how to work electricity and you don't know how to work fire, which at 20, some people still don't know how to work sex, that's a problem. So these very, very, very potent, powerful energies, it's not that you're supposed to avoid the energy altogether. You don't avoid fire altogether. You don't avoid electricity altogether. You learn how to work with fire. You learn how to work with electricity. You learn how to work with sexual energy. And make it tantra. Make it so that you use it for ascension, or you just use it to have fun on Friday night. I don't know. That's your life. I ain't got nothing to do with your life. Do what you do, baby, and make it good as long as everybody's adult and consenting. Hey, do your thing. So this whole repression around sex made it a sin. So how about we don't do that? How about we don't do that? That's all. Free people, free yourself. I don't mean run out there and have sex with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or every Jew, Joe, Joni, or Susie, or whoever. I don't mean that. I mean remove the repression, remove the shame, remove the guilt. If you don't know how to do all these things, come with us into the mystery school where we do spiritual development. Okay? Come with us into the mystery school that's linked below the video. Come with us into our programs where we work with you to develop yourself spiritually so that you can be a spiritual giant. Yes? Excellent. Under no one's control. Come on. Let's continue. Now we're going to get into, okay, so now we understand how the lie happened. Now we want to know, well, then if it wasn't God, it wasn't sexuality or homosexuality, what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? Now, I told you in the first time that we talked about Sodom and Gomorrah, how it was almost like a nuclear or atomic conflagration. So where am I getting this information from? You can go and read this online, and I'm going to give you the link to this too as well. The Erra epic. You know how they have the Epic of Atrahasis, they have the Enuma Elish, they have all these different texts. This one is not necessarily a Sumerian text, even though the ancient Sumerian text will give you a lot of information too. This is a Babylonian text written by a Babylonian priest, extremely popular in the time of the Hebrews when the Hebrews were in Babylonian captivity. So they would have heard this story all the time. They're always having these celebrations. They're always reading the story. The story is circulated everywhere. They have found this story in many parts of Mesopotamia. This story was so widespread. So it's not strange that part of this story made it into the Bible, because the very big widespread stories of the day kind of made their way into the Bible. Okay? So you want to read the Erra epic, also known as the Epic of Erra and Ishun. Now, let me get you the link for it because it makes for some fascinating. We already talked about Philo. Let's get you the Erra epic. Here it is right here. It's a Babylonian priest wrote it at about the 8th century BCE, before they even started writing the Bible, even though some want to say that the Bible started being written around the 1st century. Hey, Calvin, money in the vortex, money in the vortex, money in the vortex. I'm one of the hardest working witches, I love that, Calvin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you. God bless you. So here is the Erra epic, and you can read it. It's a long poem, and it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating. And it's a war story. So it's a war story. Wait a minute. Genesis 14 said a war was going on. Yep, you guessed it. We're getting closer and closer. Let me close this out. You're getting closer and closer. It was a war going on. Let me close this. And I just gave you the Erra epic. So I'll close that too. Okay. Whoa, looking at my Facebook ads account. Let's close that too. And let me close this. And okay. Now, here is the deal about the Erra epic, aka Epic of Erra and Ishum. Let's look at what this is about to find out, can we be detectives to find out what really happened? Who were the Anunnaki who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? Now, we've got to remember that these stories originated in Sumer. The Sumerians did not call themselves the Sumerians, they were called the black-headed people. So when you read these ancient texts, you will see that it says the black-headed people. That's what they were called. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means that their skin was black. I don't know. I do know that in Sumer, they never called themselves Sumerians. We called them Sumerians when we look back. They called themselves the black-headed people. Sumer, Akkad, which is the Akkadians, then Assyria, when the Akkadian Empire began to fall. In one end of that region, Mesopotamia, you had Assyria rising, and the other end you had Babylon rising, and then sometimes Assyria beat Babylon, and sometimes Babylon beat Assyria, and back and forth, these warring factions. Anyway, remember that when you are reading stories of the Anunnaki, they have come through all four of these. So there's Babylonian versions of the story. There are Assyrian versions of the story, and obviously they have different names. There are Akkadian versions of the story, and there are Sumerian versions of the story. So the stories don't always look exactly identical, and they don't all have the same names of the characters, obviously. Now here is Erra and Ishum. Who are they? Who is Erra and who is Ishum? Because these were the two who were flying the craft that dropped the warheads on Sodom and Gomorrah. I know that sounds so crazy. Yet, to me, it makes the most sense of all the stories that we have. Tell you why in a moment. It checks most of the boxes. So while I cannot say this is exactly what happened, and while I do not agree with everything that people say, I don't agree with everything Zechariah Sitchin says, I don't believe everything that Bible scholars tell me, I don't believe everything that academics say, I don't believe everything that anyone says. I go look for myself and take the puzzle pieces and put them together the best way that I can. We have a great big giant jigsaw puzzle in front of us, family. We have a huge jigsaw puzzle in front of us, and we've got to put the pieces together in the way that makes the most sense to us. So I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to share with you information, inspire you to do research yourself, critical thinking skills, and to evolve your consciousness above religion, beyond religion, right? We no longer need to suck at the tits of religion. We can we can wean ourselves and we can become spiritual giants. That's what we can do. Now, in Sumeria, we have, these are the two Sumerian entities. They're not gods. I don't call them gods. But academia, they make all of these mythological gods just like the Titans. I don't think the Titans were mythological gods. I believe the Titans were based on Anunnaki stories, based on earlier stories. So there is some truth in the mythology. So, who are the two? Nergal and Ninurta. Now, in the Akkadian, they are called Erra Erra, they talk about Erra as an aspect of Nergal. They don't really call it Nergal. And in the Akkadian, they no longer call Ninurta, they call him Ishun. Then when you move to the Babylonian, they call Erra as an god of war, plague, and chaos in the Babylonian, and Ishun is the advisor to Erra. So you see how the story morphs over time. We're talking about the Anunnaki versions, Nergal and Ninurta. That's who we're talking about. Now, who are Nergal and Ninurta? Who are they? Now, according to some versions of the story, uh, as you can see, Enki is the son of Anu, who is he was the leader of there were seven Anunnaki who were the seven who decree fates, they called it, right? And he was one of the big Anunnaki. So was Enki, so was Enlil, these seven that decree fates. And that Psalms 82 talks about being in the Sky Council. And sometimes I think the Sky Council also went to 12, yet there were seven that were like main Anunnaki, Anuna, quote unquote gods. I just call them entities, whether they were entities that came from another place or whether they were, which is more than likely, or they were, yeah, it's more than likely that they came from another place because they don't seem to be germane to this planet. So Anu was the great sky father, Antu was the great sky mother. Anu and Antu, this was a marriage that was a royal marriage. That means both of them are royal, of royal bloodline, quote unquote. Namu was Anu's concubine, right? Enki was the firstborn of Anu, yet he was not by the royal wife, he was by the concubine. So hence, he's not first in line to rule. Enlil is. So Enlil is the son of Anu and Antu. Enlil has a son named Ninurta. Now, Nergal, in some instances, Nergal is on this side of the family tree. Oh, let me go over here. But in some instances, Nergal is over here on this side of the family tree. Nergal has a thing with Marduk. So Enki is the father of Marduk. Marduk, as you know, big in Babylon. That was his city. That was his spot. Marduk has a son named Nabu. Now, I'm not showing you, and Enlil has a son named Ninurta. I'm not showing you all the Anunnaki. I'm not showing you Enlil and Ninlil. I'm not showing you Enki and Ninki, I think was one of his royal wife. I'm not showing you Ninhursag, who is definitely one of the big seven. I'm only showing you the ones who had something to do. I'm not showing you all the women. I'm showing you these kids that had something to do with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It was a fight between these beings right here and these beings. So Ninurta and Nergal were the two who actually went out and did the deed of dropping these nuclear warheads. And the Bible gives it a story that it was fire and smoke, and Abraham saw fire and smoke going up. Why? Because once again, this story of this war and this conflagration and this rebellion of kings would have been in the zeitgeist and everyone knew it. And the Bible is giving us some version of it. Nergal, or Nergal, however you want to say it, he is Erra. He is also called the Annihilator. Ninurta, who is Ishun, is called the Scorcher. So Ninurta scorches and Nergal annihilates. That's what you're dealing with. Now, before we go into the actual story, let's look at the Erra epic. Here's a quote from the Erra epic. But first, let's look at the quote from Genesis. If we wonder, did the Bible really steal stories from somewhere else and put them in the Bible? Well, I don't know if it's stole. I could say repurposed. They grabbed the stories that were already circulating and they repurposed them for making their origin story. The Hebrew people. making an origin story, making up Abraham, making up the 12 tribes. No such thing as the 12 tribes. No such thing. I know, sounds crazy, doesn't it? No such thing. Will you, here's Genesis 18, 23, and 24. This is Abraham. Remember, supposedly Abraham talking to Yahweh. That's how they have it in Genesis. This person is saying it to this person. I'm giving you the Genesis version of the story. Will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in this city? Will you really sweep it away instead of sparing the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people who are in it? You cannot possibly do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. You cannot possibly do that. Won't the judge of the whole earth do what is just? Okay, that's Genesis. Erra epic, written a couple of hundred years, maybe a few hundred years before Genesis. Valiant Erra, will you, the righteous, destroy with the unrighteous? Will you destroy those who against you have not sinned with those who against you have sinned? It's almost identical. This is the Erra epic. This is Genesis. It's almost word for word identical. Erra epic, much older than Genesis. It's almost identical. And now for the riveting story of what could have happened to the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Let me come on screen share to tell you this story, and then we're going to wrap it up. I'm so proud of us today. I am so proud of us. Absolutely share, share, share this with everyone you know who goes to church, everyone you know who loves the Bible, because I love the Bible too, just for different reasons. I now know that the Bible is not from God, and that's a powerful thing to know because you can read the Bible in a whole different way. Here's the story of what happened with Nergal and Ninurta. Where did they get this weaponry? Supposedly, Anu, still on the planet where they were. Enki, Mercury, Quetzalcoatl. Yes. Oh my God. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Absolutely, Calvin. You were on it. You were on it. So when they were on their home planet, this is according to one version of the story. I'm not telling you that this is the truth. So don't say, Reverend Val said it went like this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm showing you different versions of the story. It's a jigsaw puzzle. You've got to put together a jigsaw puzzle from the past because history is not easy to map out because we weren't there. So no one can say what absolutely happened and what absolutely did not happen. And on that note, we are all on equal footing. I love that because no one can tell you that absolutely did not happen. And no one can tell you that absolutely did happen because we don't know. We're putting together evidence the best we can from archaeology, biology, evolutionary science, agriculture, what's left on this planet. There are some incredible monuments on this planet that no one can explain. All of the things, our own genetics, when we look at our own biology, there are things that we cannot explain. So we are understanding that we cannot be dogmatic about these things. We can't say, this is what happened. I'm not dogmatic about the Anunnaki. I'm willing to learn more and I'm willing to be corrected and I'm willing to really, truly understand what happened. So when they were on their home planet, this is a version of the story. And this story, it feels like it makes a lot of sense. They were on their planet and Alalu was the ruler of their planet, the king. And Anu challenged Alalu and won the challenge, challenging his kingship that I should be it because I'm more royal than you. And so he won. Alalu fled that planet. When he fled the planet, he loaded up his ship with warheads. Why? You might say, why would he take warheads with him? Because they knew they had mapped the stars already. They knew that there was the hammered bracelet out there, and they knew that sometimes they would blast things out of their way when they were zipping through space. It's just like Star Trek. and a photon burst. I mean, we already have this in our shows. Like it shouldn't be crazy. We thought of this already. So it shouldn't be so strange that somebody thought of shooting something and blasting it out of the way. Like that's what we do. Okay. And so he takes these warheads, puts them in his vehicle, in his, not his vehicle, his spaceship, is his celestial chariot, is what they want to call it, right? And he's off and he finds Ki. Ki is Earth, Ki. Ki is the name they had for Earth. They didn't call it Earth, they call it Ki. Well, they found Ki and he found it. He was by himself. And he landed and he was like, oh my goodness, and then he's looking all around and he finds gold. And according to the story, they needed gold, they needed gold, they needed gold. And so he messages them to try to get his honor back because he's kind of bribing them like, hey, there's gold down here. I know something you don't know, but y'all got to let me not be banished. Y'all got to let me, he wants to get his comeuppance. And they're like, well, we're going to send Enki to check it out. So Enki, also known as Ea, right? EA, Enki. Ki is in his name because when he came here, he was one of the first, and he brought with him like a co-pilot. And they come down to check it out and whatnot. It checks out. There's gold. And so Enki tells them, oh yeah, hey, woohoo, come on down. The getting is good. Come on, right? And so in the meantime, Enki and his co-pilot, they are fixing up Alalu's ship because he's going to return with a shipment of gold. And when they see the warheads on his celestial chariot, his ship, they remove the warheads and they hide them in a cave, right? No one knows where they are. Enki was like, oh my goodness, these things are like, well, of course they know what they are. They're super destructive, radioactive, these are nuclear warheads, basically, or atomic, what we would call nuclear warheads or atomic warheads, like the things that we keep locked up in silos because we know how dangerous they are. Well, it was like that. And they hid them. And then they loaded up Alalu's ship and sent him packing, right? And he still got into some trouble and he wound up getting killed and all that, and Anu winds up getting castrated, and many stories have that the higher god got castrated. That's in Greek mythology too, because that's based on this fight that they had where Anu got his man parts actually bitten off by Alalu. I mean, it's crazy. It's just, I don't even want to talk about that part anyway. Yes. Mind blowing. These beings were some really. Do you see why they're not gods? And do you see why the Bible is so like, wow, it's got so many bizarre stories because it's based on these beings. Okay. Now, they get the warheads off. Time passes. No one knows where the warheads are. At one point, Enlil, this is now years later, bunch of them have come down now. Enlil is now down, and Enlil can rule over Earth because he's the firstborn. And so he's called Lord of the Command. So he is like Earth ruler. And they gave each of them different parts that they rule. So Enki got the Apsu, which is Africa. And I wouldn't have been called Africa back then. And this is where you see all of the mines all over South Africa. Remember, we talked about African Stonehenge in one of the episodes. All throughout South Africa, Zimbabwe, Greater Zimbabwe, where else? I think even Botswana, you see mines, super old mines. I mean, incredible. So you could see all the stuff that they were doing all throughout South Africa, right? So Enki was down there in what they call the Apsu. And then Inanna had, I think she had Uruk. And, they all had their spots where they were ruling. And they had their minions, people that they had constructed. well, that they had genetically modified, called the Adamites, which supposedly are us, right? The Adamites, the ones that they biologically engineered. Anyway, Enlil at some point um, took advantage sexually, committed a sexual assault, and he was banished for a while. And he was banished because that was a big like crime in the Anunnaki world. That's a that's like a no. Like you could get banished for that. It is really bad. Like you could not commit a crime against a woman that was like a female Anunnaki. That was just like the worst. And it didn't matter how high you were, they were going to deal with you. And so he had this hefty punishment. He had to be like um banished, almost like Cain, for a while, right? And sure enough, he comes to find out who takes him to his banishment other than the co-pilot who was with Inky, who hid the warheads. And when they went past the cave in that area of banishment, that's when the co-pilot of Inky said, oh yeah, the warheads are in there. So Enlil found out where the warheads were. Okay, so time goes by, time goes by, time goes by. And of course, they have them hidden away because these things are super dangerous, super destructive. So time goes by, time goes by. Eventually, these two warring factions, Enlil and Inky, they start having another one of their arguments. And this time, the argument was over Marduk. Marduk is sort of at the center of this particular argument because Marduk is ready to take over as the leader because he is Taurus, the bull, and Enlil is Aries, the ram. So the ram's time was coming to an end according to what they could see in the stars and the constellations because they were deep into divination and astrology and all of that and astronomy. All of that, Calvin. They didn't want royal blood mixed with slaves. That's absolutely right. That is absolutely accurate. Absolutely correct. Correct. Yep. They were obsessed with purity of the bloodline. Where do you think we get it? Where do we get that from? We still have that in Europe. Kings and queens and bloodlines. We still have it in America because, believe it or not, George Bush and Barack Obama are from the same bloodline. We have bloodlines in America. Wouldn't believe that, but we do. Okay? Now, when continuing on, where am I in the story? I'm up to the part now where Marduk is very upset because he wants to be the next ruler. He's chomping at the bit, chomping at the bit, chomping at the bit. And Enlil is telling him, settle down. And he wants to be the ruler. He feels like he's being overlooked. He's being taken advantage of. So that it turns into a big thing. And what happens? Some of the kings start going on one side and some of the kings start going on the other side. So here you see what the Bible is saying in the book of Genesis is that part is probably harkens back to a truth that these kings of these different city states were starting to take sides. Like some were with Enlil, like the Enlilites, and some were with Enki and Marduk and Nabu. Nabu's son was Nabu is Marduk's son. So you can see lines are forming, alliances, just like the Bible says. The Bible said that. Now, the Bible's not saying this because the Bible's from God. The Bible is saying this because humans know about these stories and they're repurposing and retelling the stories. And what they don't know is that they're unconsciously passing on to us stories that we would have never known about. We didn't know about these alliance of kings. Well, after a while, the alliance breaks down. They start the tensions start to mount. They have a meeting of the Sky Council, and Anu gives permission to use one of the warheads but only to destroy one of the space stations so that they can kind of get control of the whole situation, right? And head off people just coming and going as they please, doing whatever they want to kind of get things back under control. Well, when they were going to blow up the space station, they told, in the Erra epic it says that they told the gods, quote unquote, the other Anunnaki, we're about to blow this shit up, so get out of here. And they went up, they said, into their heavenly chariots. They all got into their spaceships and lifted up and got out of there. And, pardon me, and when they lifted up, Ninurta and Nergal, the Annihilator and the Scorcher, were in the ship, and they were the actual ones that lit them, lit it up. And they were also saying, are you going to tell any of the humans? And one of them said, hey, we should probably tell who is Abraham in the Bible story. Because in the Bible story, the three men come to Abraham and tell him, we're about to blow this shit up. Right? Has nothing to do with any kind of sexuality. None of this, whether you're straight or gay or tall or short or whatever you like or whatever you do, this Sodom and Gomorrah has nothing to do with any of that at all. It's a story about warfare. It is a military story. It is a story about conflict between the Anunnaki, whom they draw many humans into it. And it is a story about destruction. And it is a story about an advanced civilization using extreme nuclear measures and atomic weaponry. And we can know that they have used these kinds of things because we have evidence of it in the desert. Near the Dead Sea, they found pottery shards where it has trinitite on the pottery shard, which is sand heated to a super duper duper high heat. Yet there are no, so if you think this is a war, maybe they set things fire, trinitite doesn't come from a regular fire. And there were no warheads found. There were no evidence. There was no evidence of a battle. No spearheads. No, you know, when there's a battle, you're going to see spearheads, you're going to see arrows, you're going to see all of the things that they used when they went to war in the ancient world. None of that was present. Only this super scorch, super duper scorch. And so what they're saying is that it was some kind of atomic bomb. It looked like when an atomic bomb is detonated in the desert. That's what it looks like. And it also produces an extreme amount of salt, which the Dead Sea is full of salt. And Lot's wife, in the whole story, supposedly turned into what? A pillar of salt. Because there could have been some people in the blast that they were blasted with salt, they were frozen in place. And the Bible makes it a value call that she turned around because she was longing for the things behind, and so she got turned into a pillar of salt. Not see, because the Bible is making a case. Once again, it's making a theological case. It's not reporting actual events, which is why could be that the Dead Sea is full of salt because it creates tons of salt. So maybe a lot of people got frozen in salt. We don't know. There are bodies there, they say, that are so scorched, they're scorched beyond recognition in this particular part of the desert at Tal el Hammam. Now, they don't know if Tal el Hammam is the actual site of Sodom and Gomorrah. It fits the description. It's in the same vicinity as by the the Dead Sea. And Tal el Hammam is where they found this very high heat that came from the sky. Now, was it an asteroid or something like that? No, this was once again the Anunnaki up to their old tricks. Up to their old tricks. Okay. Ooh, baby. I want to be on it, baby. I want to be on it. Trust me, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And the more puzzle pieces you put together, because we really got to research and research all across the board: archaeology, history, biology, science, psychiatry, linguistics. All of these things come into play. And the Bible, I'm telling you, the Bible has been my greatest guide on this, not because it came from God, because I know the real God is not in the Bible. I freaking love you. I'll see you in the next episode of The Real God Is Not in the Bible. Peace. Casey out. So good.